Hey everybody, welcome back to Kayfabe Critique. I'm David.
I'm Jason. Salute.
And so we are in Wrestlemania season. And so think back, go back to our season 1, you kind of see our episodes of the eras of WWE. We talked about during the golden era, wrestling started off as the territory system. Vince McMahon when purchasing Capital Sports, acquiring the business from his dad, changing the WWF to WWF, bringing in this all-star cast of different talents from the different territories, and really goes to go mainstream with the celebrity mix and creates WrestleMania. And, here it is, this phenomenon that's going on now to the 35th year.
Wow.
And it's truly is the Super Bowl of wrestling, the grandest stage of them all, as they like to say. So, what's your favorite WrestleMania?
Ooh. I'm struggling with this because I was actually thinking about this while I was at work earlier. I want to say 25. I'm kind of partial towards that one because I was there, and I just remember just the crowd during the Undertaker Shawn Michaels match. I still have never heard a crowd like that anywhere.
And see, I'm torn. So I could tell you moments.
Yeah.
Of WrestleManias that were my favorites. Like I remember watching WrestleMania 1 as a kid. I remember the anticipation of the big blue cage match with Hogan and Bundy at WrestleMania 2. I remember the anticipation and excitement and talking with my brothers about Hogan Andre going to WrestleMania 3. And then not really appreciating until I got older the Savage Steamboat match that happened on the undercard of 3. The tournament with 4. Really looking for Hogan Savage at WrestleMania 5.
Which is my second favorite, which is the first one I ordered on pay-per-view.
Yeah, and then, just being over at Hulkamania and just, kind of tuning out for a little bit after WrestleMania 5, but then tuning back in by Royal Rumble to see Warrior Hogan at WrestleMania 6. And then tuning out after WrestleMania 7 because Hogan got the belt back from Slaughter, and not watching for a while until, Tyson got involved for WrestleMania 14. And loving the build towards the main event of WrestleMania 14, loving the main event of WrestleMania 14. I could talk about those moments. And then moments through the years after that, like the NWO coming in at 18, or, Shawn coming back at WrestleMania 19, the WrestleMania 21, Shawn Michaels, Kurt Angle.
Wow.
WrestleMania 25, like you mentioned, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker. That, I could talk about so many of those moments. Or WrestleMania 30 when you had Austin, Rock, and Hogan in the ring at the same time.
Bro.
It's like, so many moments I could talk about, but when it comes to an entire WrestleMania show, the one we're going to cover tonight is probably still my favorite. Not for so much the match quality.
Right.
I can tell you matches that were so much better. Or WrestleManias that had bigger, better matches.
Right.
I may be able to point out, shows that were formatted together better than this one. However, I don't remember one that I was more excited for multiple things on the show, where I knew definitely the storyline of every single thing going into it, and there wasn't anything I wanted to miss. And it is WrestleMania 15. And I just remember the excitement of going to watch it. I remember going to watch it at my cousin's house, and there easily was 20 of us in that house to watch this pay-per-view.
Yeah, I think we were in my parents' basement, I think, and I think we had about 20 of us watching it there too, so.
Yeah, because this was at a time, when you order the pay-per-view, you can choose, do you want it on just this box or all boxes? And at my cousin's house, there was 3 different cable boxes in 3 different rooms. And so between the 3 rooms, I mean, there was easily 20 people spread out through that house watching WrestleMania 15. I remember knowing how many people were going to get there. I remember having my girlfriend at the time follow me in her car so I could get there early, park my car in front of his house, so that way I would have one of the good parking spots. And then I remember us that whole week, like, you know, planning on what time we were all going to show up, what snacks we were all going to bring, and just how excited we all were to watch this show.
Yeah, I think this was in 99, which was really like a year that, I mean, 98, the 83 weeks in it and stuff like that, but 99, it was, I mean, that was really like, this might be like when the Attitude Era hit like peak attitude.
Yeah, I've always thought that as well. I thought it slowly started to change after this. I thought this was the high point of it, and I believe, you know, because just the fall after this, the fall of 1999, WWE started to change, you know, and, you know, I personally attribute that, you know, to Vince Russo going to WCW.
Definitely a factor.
Some people may disagree with that, but that's where I always thought, because you can see a difference after he leaves in the programming. But this was like the high point of everything that had been building. So like you said, like, you know, in 98, they had such good stories. The Attitude Era was in full swing. They stopped the 83 weeks. We see the rise of Austin. We see the development of The Rock. And so this was bringing that all together.
Yep. And with the beginning of the greatest trilogy of WrestleMania matches we would ever see.
Yeah, and so that's really where we've been going with this. So, you know, you can go back and check through our, you know, YouTube channel, look through the previous episodes. You know, we started this, you know, Survivor Series. We covered Survivor Series 98. We covered Rock Bottom. We covered the Royal Rumble, St. Valentine's Day Massacre, all leading to get to this moment. So we'll cover that in a minute. First, let's run through the show, and then we'll get to what the main focus is really we've been building towards, like you said, the guys that would go on and have a trilogy, but this is the first one. 2 of the biggest stars in the history of WWE, arguably the 2 greatest in terms of promos, 2 of the greatest characters, without doubt, 2 guys that if either one of them or both of them could step back in the ring right now would immediately sell out a house and draw all eyes to them again. Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock.
The Great One and the Rattlesnake.
Yeah. So, you know, starting with, you know, what was interesting about WrestleMania 15 is now you have WWE Access. You didn't have that back then, but what they did was on USA Network, the night before WrestleMania, they had the Rage Party before this.
Oh yeah, I remember that. And I just remember Stone Cold being drunk as hell.
And The Rock showing up with the corporation.
Yeah, I remember that. And
DX being there.
DX was there. We also had Isaac Hayes. I'm trying to think who else was there. Mick Foley telling bad jokes about Al Snow.
Yeah, so, I mean, this was different, but it spoke to that popularity of what WWE had at the time. I mean, the Attitude Era, you know, JR and Jerry the King Lawler have talked about it, you know, on WWE Network, you know, during the segments on the Monday Night War, that, you know, at that time, the Attitude Era, you know, it was must-watch TV, but every Monday night felt like a party. You know, the crowd there with their signs, everyone wanting to chant along, knowing the catchphrases and everything, and this Rage Party was just an example of it. It's like, this isn't even the event, but everyone, USA is willing to carry a pre-party that's legitimately just people at a club.
Yeah, and that's literally all it was.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that just is a testament to how big WWE was at the time.
Right. And willing to try anything. It's like, people are going to come to a club, people are going to come here to a club and watch our guys just basically come out and cut promos and stuff like that. Just to be able to say, I saw The Rock, basically.
And I mean, it talks about, to us as fans at the time, just, we couldn't get enough. I remember sitting at home watching that.
Me too.
Yeah, so it's like I'm watching people at a club instead of getting up and going to a club. I'm sitting at home watching people at a club.
Right. Man, we did that.
So, you get to the pay-per-view, starting with, Sunday Night Heat. You had Jacqueline, with Terry Reynolds defeats Ivory. Then you have a battle royal to determine the number one contenders of who's going to win, or who's going to face the tag team champions that night. And D'Lo Brown and Test win that match. So then, we move into the actual pay-per-view card. WrestleMania starts. Hardcore Holly defeats Al Snow and Billy Gunn for the Hardcore Championship. And, we kind of talked about it during some of the other episodes. The Hardcore Championship was definitely, it started off for Mick Foley. We talked about that, in the Survivor Series 98 episode. But at this point, it had really changed and evolved into something completely different.
Yeah, it really had, and it became something that other guys were going after. Was it 24 hours? Not yet. But I mean, it gave other people something to shoot for, which you had everybody. It was important.
Yeah, and the matches were different. They were battling through the arena and going outside. They were battling in the crowd, and it was one of those things where what I loved about this era was there was something for everyone.
Yeah. And
so the hardcore title matches, gave a different appeal. So those who, may have been ECW fans, but you're wanting to watch WWE because that's what all your friends watch, well, now you have a segment that's something similar to what you like. And just the uniqueness of what we would see. Like, we had talked about when Hardcore Holly won it when we covered our last show, when we covered St. Valentine's Day Massacre. When they went outside and him and Al Snow fought and went into the river. That was unique. It was different. I remember, watching it at the time live and just all of us talking about like, whoa, they threw him in the river. And I mean, it was just so different because you had never seen stuff like that before on WWE TV.
I mean, it's just very anti-80s WWF TV.
Right. Yeah, and it was definitely, had that went on during the New Generation era, it probably would have shocked everyone.
It just wouldn't have gone on.
So we move on from there. Jeff Jarrett and Owen Hart defeat D'Lo Brown and Test. D'Lo Brown and Test had just won it earlier in the night, but they don't beat Jarrett and Owen Hart. But the next match on the card is the winner of the Brawl for All, Bart Gunn, is put into a boxing match against Butterbean. And now where Butterbean may not be, a Mike Tyson, or at this time, 1999, Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield. He's definitely not one of those three, but however, he is a professional fighter. A guy who's had multiple professional fights under his belt. I know a lot of people look at him, well, he was just really a tough man guy. He really only fought the 3 to 4 round fights. But he's still a trained professional fighter going against a guy who's never actually had a professional boxing match. He just had a hard punch and beat some guys that had never had training to fight that style before.
Yeah, that was... and they've talked about it through the years. That was just not a good idea because if you're not trained... boxing's hard enough, but if you're not trained to do it, you increase the risk of head injuries.
And so, in all my years boxing, the thing that I always thought was the funniest is how many people think they can do it and then they get in the ring. Like, whenever, I remember like when I was a kid, when I was still just in the amateurs, Tyson would fight on Saturday, or De La Hoya would fight on Saturday, Pernell Whitaker would fight on Saturday. Come Monday, you have a whole new crop of guys in the gym because they saw that fight and they're like, I can do that. By Wednesday, they're gone because they went to hit the bags and realized, wow, this, I don't have the stamina for this. The training's a lot harder.
Yeah.
Or they made it till Tuesday and they got in the ring to spar.
Yeah.
And then they got hit and they were like, nope, I'm done.
Yeah.
And so, it's different to be in a sport like that that's truly a one-on-one competitive sport to whether, yes, you can get hurt without question. People have died in the ring. You can definitely seriously get hurt. But there's also the psychological thing of no one wants to get exposed.
Right.
Everyone wants that, goes to get in a ring or goes to believe they can box. They have that belief in themselves that they can fight.
Right.
And then they get in there and to be beat by someone else. Mm-hmm. You don't have anyone to blame.
Another man. Yep.
Yeah, you don't have anyone to blame. You just have to accept the fact that you just got your ass beat.
Right.
And so a lot of people can't live with that. They can't take that, I just got exposed in front of a bunch of people. So, so those who actually do it and stay with it, it's a different breed. I remember when I switched from the amateurs into the pro division and going into the gym, and it's a different level. Now you're fighting with the best of the best. It's kind of like, yeah, you're a good high school player, but now you're going into college, and everyone there was a good high school player. Or, you know what, yeah, you were a good college player, but now you're going to the NFL. And guess what? Everybody there was good in college. So, it's just a different level. And so, yeah, Bart Gunn going against Butterbean, he wasn't going to stand a chance, and he didn't, as Butterbean just destroys him in round 1. 35 seconds to be.
I don't think we've seen Bart Gunn since.
Yeah, I don't know if Bart Gunn has seen Bart Gunn since, because his head might still be spinning from that punch.
Right. Yeah, because the way he fell, it was kind of like Pacquiao when he got knocked out. He's been gone. Foreman disappeared for maybe 10 years or so after like the Rumble in the Jungle.
Yeah, he fought for Foreman had a couple more fights after. Actually, one of the things unique about Foreman, I know this definitely off topic. Did you know George Foreman, after losing to Muhammad Ali, to prove that he was the one person Ali should fight, because Ali would never give him a rematch, to prove that he was the one guy Ali should fight, because Foreman's always held to the statement that he believes he was poisoned in Zaire. That he believes he was poisoned, like they put something into his drinking water to drug him that night. He's always held to that, so he wanted that rematch, he pushed for that rematch. And to prove that he was the guy Ali should fight, George Foreman fought 5 professional fights in a single night and beat all 5 guys.
You'll never see that happen again.
Granted, I'm going off memory here, but I don't believe any of them lasted past round 2. He beat 5 of the top contenders, all in 2 rounds or less, to show that he was the guy Ali should fight, but still never got his rematch.
When did he have his rematch with Frazier?
He fought Frazier twice. So he fought Frazier to win the title, and then he fought Frazier again after he had lost the belt to Ali, as he was still trying to show that he deserved the championship. Because he destroyed Frazier both times.
Yeah, both. And I don't think Frazier. I think after the second time he fought Foreman, I think Frazier was pretty much done.
Yeah. Yeah, he hit Frazier so hard, he was lifting Frazier right off the ground.
Yeah.
So we saw, Butterbean just destroyed Bart Gunn in 35 seconds. We know, it's people have talked about it since then that, maybe Bart Gunn should have just went in there like he did in Brawl for All and just swing at him, and they're thinking he would have stood a better chance, but it's like, he would have got knocked out quicker.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
it would have been done. It was over before it started.
Yeah, because you watch, his Brawl for All stuff, and yes, he hits hard. I'm not taking that away from him, but he didn't have the footwork. He didn't have, know how to hold his hands or anything through Brawl for All. He just had a natural punch, and so it's like you just bring that natural punch to a seasoned professional who knows how to take a punch and knows how to give a punch. He's just gonna knock him out even quicker.
Yeah.
So, but one thing I wanted to, I know we've kind of dwelled on this match for a little while, but one thing I wanted to say is, did you ever hear the rumor of who they had initially thought about bringing in to fight Bart Gunn instead?
No.
I don't know how true it was, but there was talk of bringing, from what I remember reading at that time online, was trying to get Tyson to come back. And because he had just been involved in 14, bringing him back to face Bart Gunn for 15, because they started doing the Brawl for All before he was reinstated into boxing. And so they had talked about setting up the tournament at that time, for him to fight the winner of the tournament. And it's like, if you thought what Butterbean did to him was bad, so you definitely didn't want to put him in there with Tyson.
If my reward for winning Brawl for All was Mike Tyson, y'all can keep it.
Yeah.
F that.
Yeah, especially at that time, putting a Tyson who knows that he's going in there against someone who's not trained, it would have been in killer mode. That would have been a 12-second fight. And 10 of those, they're still counting Bart.
Right.
So, alright, so after there, as we've been talking, through our episodes, Mankind has been a big part of who we've been talking about. And so Mankind, after his feud with The Rock for the championship, and kind of, getting screwed out of it multiple times, Big Show interfering, and after St. Valentine's Day Massacre, we got Big Show interfering in the ladder match with The Rock the next night on Raw after St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Big Show interferes, Mankind loses. We start going down the path of Mankind versus the Big Show to see who's going to be the special referee for the main event for the championship.
Yeah.
And, Mankind wins by disqualification. But, Big Show does the choke slam through the chairs, which forces Mankind to leave, and it doesn't look like he's going to be able to referee the main event.
Yeah, and I just remember Vince McMahon being very upset with the Big Show, and the Big Show ended up getting arrested or something like that.
Yeah, and so, it was definitely one of those things where it looked like it was a little... They were bringing Big Show in, but, they bring him in at St. Valentine's Day Massacre, and then was almost... You had him kind of in a holding pattern. You didn't know really how to book him right away or couldn't really book him to full potential yet because you had to have Rock and Austin.
Yeah, there was no way around that, and leading up to this, you actually had Big Show losing to Austin on TV.
Yeah, where you could have easily throw Austin through the cage at St. Valentine's Day Massacre because that was a spot that left people talking, but have it where he only pops up, only steps out with Vince McMahon, and don't have him involved in any match until after this main event, and then have him attack Austin.
Yeah,
Build up for Austin's next big match, but hindsight's 2020.
Hindsight's 2020, and you had so much with Austin and The Rock. You couldn't have Austin Big Show at the next pay-per-view.
So then, from here you have a Four Corners elimination match for the WWF at the time Intercontinental Championship, which Road Dogg wins. He beats Goldust, Ken Shamrock, and Val Venus. And so, we talked about Billy Gunn was in the Hardcore Championship, Road Dogg's in the Intercontinental Championship. And so, like we talked about at the last, covering the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, we really saw one of the best tag teams ever, the New Age Outlaws, kind of going singles runs at this time.
You saw it, and it was one of those situations where they were both good away from each other, but they were just so much better together. And when you look at, I'm just thinking about that whole match overall, the talent in that ring, Shamrock, Val Venus, the Road Dogg, all of that talent. Who am I forgetting?
Goldust.
All of that talent in the ring. Every one of them has, any of those four is a legitimate IC champion at that point.
Yeah. And also, so far, this was the 7th match of the night. And while, you may, if you haven't seen the show, or, even if you have, if you weren't actually watching at that time, if you weren't around at that time, or you weren't a fan at that time, you may not, have heard anything on here that's really standing out to you. But every single match on here meant something then. All of these guys were involved in storylines. You knew the storyline of each character. You knew who each character was, what they meant, what they would be doing. You felt something for each character, and so you cared about every single match that had happened on the show.
Without question. And when you're watching, even when you're watching with your buddies, everybody's got their different favorite.
Yep, yeah. And everyone knows the story, and so everyone's got an opinion to talk about it in the room.
Right. and everybody is, I mean, everybody can make valid points. I mean, and that's what added to the excitement of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why, I'll always go back to why, I know we covered it when we talked about the Attitude Era. That's why, the Attitude Era is always, I hold it so dear to me because that's what it was like, me and all my buddies sitting around, it was, must-watch TV. We knew every story of the time. We just loved what was going on and just consistently, talking with each other, sharing our opinions and just, I remember some nights Monday Night Raw would end and we would go out and get in my car and just drive around. And, even though all of us had to be up early the next morning, for school, we would just go get in the car and we would just drive around. And I remember, for probably 2 hours, just talking about what would happen on the show and what we think is going to happen next week.
Dang.
So, so the next match, Kane defeats Triple H by disqualification because Kane, who comes out with China, we had covered, starting with the Royal Rumble episode of, China had turned on DX and joined the corporation. China now turns on Kane and helps, Triple H. So Kane gets the win, but China and Triple H are back together.
And you have the emotional reunion of basically D-Generation X is back together and whole because China had left and China's come home. And I mean, now they're going into the Hall of Fame 20 years after this Mania, basically. And you didn't really care who won or lost the match. You had DX back together.
And what was interesting, though, is while that was looking like DX coming back together, this is really the end of the DX version of Triple H.
Yeah.
Because after this, him and China are going to, he's going to start coming out to the his own theme music. He's going to join the corporation with China, and we're going to really see that push. And by SummerSlam, he's the #1 heel in the business and becoming the game.
Yep.
And changing how people see Triple H forever.
Yep. I see a Triple H episode in our future, and I can't wait.
Yeah. And so this was, really the end of that version of Triple H. So the next match, Sable, who was unbelievably popular at the time.
And hot.
Yes, and Brock's going to beat your ass for that. So Sable was unbelievable.
I just said she was hot. I mean, I'm not saying
No, yeah, absolutely. I remember, all of us at the time just, everyone loved Sable. I always thought, I was a little more partial to Sunny, but yeah, definitely, Sable was...
Yeah.
So Sable defeats Tori, for the women's championship, or retaining the women's championship. But then, we get to see Shane McMahon with Tez, in a European Championship match, defeat X-Pac. So we're still, as we talked about, starting back with Survivor Series 98 and building up, the corporation versus DX, we're seeing that carried all the way out through now.
Right, and this is the first appearance we have with Shane O'Mac wrestling at WrestleMania. And, I mean, who would have thought that 20 years later, he'd be having another match at WrestleMania against The Miz at 35. And just, I mean, think about this match. You got the whole corporation versus DX thing, and then you have China and China rejoining DX just like a match or two before this, and then this match happens, and you get the turn, which is one of the great things about WrestleMania is that something's going to happen. Something's going to happen that you didn't see coming. Who saw Triple H pedigreeing X-Pac and costing him the European title and joining up with a corporation?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't see that coming.
Right.
And it was the perfect time to do it, though.
Yeah, and so next match is also something that really kind of stands out. Undertaker beats Big Boss Man in a Hell in a Cell match. You had the Brood on top of the cage.
Yeah, this match stands out, but
And they hanged Big Boss Man at the end of it. So it's something that you would never see in this era. Really shocking at that time as well. Even though, the Attitude Era, really pushed the envelope. That was shocking.
I'm like, how do you do that?
Right? Yeah. Like, I mean,
How do you? I mean, how do you get somebody to agree to do that?
yeah. And I mean, granted, you could see the harness, so you knew like, okay, he's not really hanging, but just that visual. I remember like seeing it like, whoa. I mean, like they really pushed on this one.
Yeah, they pushed the envelope there, and I mean, but again, you like you mentioned, it's the Brood, and you got the first appearance of Edge and Christian at WrestleMania, which, I mean, when you think about, I've been watching a lot of stuff from like the mid 2000s, which is a time that I missed out on a lot of in WWE. Just you think about the rise of Edge and Christian. I mean, this is their first appearance at Mania.
Yeah, and it's the start of what's going to be the big angle for, kind of going forward after Mania, the Ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And so, speaking of the Ministry, we really see that here, starting around this time of this new look of The Undertaker. It's one of the different, versions of The Undertaker that we have seen over time. What did you think about this version of The Undertaker?
I think that it made sense if you were going to have Undertaker be a heel. I think you needed to have him go to that darker place and kind of touch that dark, semi-goth type character, very devilish and demonic. I think you needed to go there. I mean, and some people would argue that it was satanic and things like that, but it's entertainment at the end of the day.
Right, and when you look across the board at this time, the cartoon era stuff was over. The new generation stuff had ended. You were running more adult-themed storylines, more reality-based storylines. And so a character like The Undertaker is kind of hard to fit into that. Like, you look at The Undertaker the way he is, Royal Rumble 98 against Shawn Michaels, it's hard to pluck that Undertaker and then put him into 1999. Because, you start with basically Survivor Series 97, and as far as pushing the envelope in the creative direction of WWE being adult and realism, it's just on fast forward. Yeah. And so The Undertaker, instead of them being lost in the shuffle during that time, I thought they did a great job of evolving that character.
Yeah.
And evolving him in a way he stayed true to the Undertaker character, but did it in a way where it became very edgy, definitely adult, very, pushing the reality limits and setting up the future. I mean, they're already laying the groundwork going forward of what we're going to see over the next 3 to 4 months, and really doing it well, laying those foundational pieces like we had talked about, those previous episodes, building up to this, of how well storylines were laid in and built for the future, which you really don't see in today's age.
You don't see it, and I mean, you're seeing it with you're starting to see a little bit more of it, but in this era, everything was just so laid out. I mean, and now, I guess in that era, you also had competition, which was something else that might have been driving that, so you got to plan ahead.
Yeah, and so, but then again, if you haven't watched our episode on the conspiracy, Vince Russo conspiracy, you kind of just talked about right there. If this stuff doesn't show that he planned ahead, for everyone who always says he never had a plan, I mean, you can see it there. And so now we're going into the main event. What this build-up that we've been doing this whole time is about, Austin versus The Rock. But, as we, you go back watching our Survivor Series 98, we covered multiple storylines really building towards this. And as you can see, how many different people were involved in this and how it was all layered together to make it happen. So let's quickly, catch everybody up if you haven't seen those previous episodes. So in the fall of 1997, while out with the neck injury from SummerSlam 97, Austin begins to stun WWE officials. He stunned Sergeant Slaughter, who was the commissioner at the time. He stuns JR, ends up stunning Vince McMahon, and gets taken off in handcuffs, very similar to what we've seen recently with Becky Lynch. Then he ends up going in to win his second Royal Rumble in a row, winning at Royal Rumble 98. He gets the face-to-face confrontation with Mike Tyson. Tyson, he flips Tyson off, Tyson pushes him. Media attention around the world on that moment, and with Vince McMahon yelling at him, you ruined it. Tyson ends up, siding with DX. Shawn Michaels, leader of DX at the time. Austin's going into WrestleMania to face Shawn Michaels. So, just a lot of build towards that of, is Austin going to be able to get it? And on the road to WrestleMania 14, we had Mr. McMahon saying that from a public relations standpoint, no, Stone Cold would not be a good champion. Does he want Austin to win? It's not just a no, it's a, oh, hell no. And so the groundwork is laid there for possibly the greatest rivalry in the history of wrestling, Austin McMahon. And so, after winning the title, Austin McMahon was on. It started with the "you said you could beat me with one arm behind your back," and then that's really just setting up Dude Love to come out. So they try to pull the title away from him with Dude Love. Then it goes on to Kane and The Undertaker. And that leads up through SummerSlam on to Breakdown, where Kane and The Undertaker pin Austin at the same time. So then we go into Judgment Day, which The Rock wins the #1 championship at Breakdown. Or sorry, not the #1 championship, #1 contendership at Breakdown. But because there's not a clear winner at Breakdown, we go into Judgment Day, and we have Undertaker versus Kane, the two men that scored the pin over the champion, against each other with Austin as the ref. And McMahon stating that Austin has to crown a winner or he will be fired. Austin stuns them both, calls himself the winner. So McMahon does the firing of Austin. Yeah, McMahon does the firing of Austin in a long swerve. Shane McMahon brings him back. We go into Survivor Series 98 because the title was declared vacant. There is the tournament, and the tournament is set up where the corporation is out to screw over Mankind and Austin, but really using Mankind as the pawn to get towards the end. So the true corporate champion, which was the big swerve of the night, The Rock, is able to walk away with the title. So, now let's pause and go to the other side of this equation. So, because Austin was huge at this time, Austin, the minute the glass would break, the crowd would go crazy. 98 was an unbelievable run. Everyone loved seeing him going after the title. Everyone loved him as champion. And so now we've just seen him screwed out of the title and it kept away from him. So the natural desire is to see him go after the title. And so the perfect champion for him to go against at this time, because of people wanting him to be anti-corporate, would be a good-looking corporate champion in The Rock. So, The Rock had a very different path, third-generation wrestler, coming in initially, Survivor Series 96 as Rocky Maivia. Didn't take long for the crowd to really boo him, because the wrestling fans at that time had changed. The NWO had changed the landscape of wrestling.
Without a doubt.
And so he turned heel, joining the Nation of Domination, and really became The Rock.
Yep. He got 3 words: die Rocky sucks.
Yeah. And that, him turning heel and joining the Nation, you just kind of pointed out those promos that we started to see a different side of this guy that we hadn't seen before. And it really quickly caught on that this guy's money.
Yep.
And so, he goes from there, ends up becoming the leader of the Nation pretty quick. They have a historic feud, with DX. He has great matches with Triple H. The Epic Ladder match at SummerSlam 98 really set him up to that he's, the next breakthrough star. So that kind of leads to Breakdown, to where he becomes the #1 contender. And he's really kind of moving into, if he's not the top babyface, he's neck and neck with Austin.
Yeah, 1 and 1A.
Yeah, and so then, as his popularity grows going into Survivor Series, there's a lot of people that are, most people going into Survivor Series thought it was a setup that Austin was going to get the belt back.
Yeah.
There were some people that were like, oh no, it's going to screw him over and Mankind's going to get the title. I remember telling my friends, nope, The Rock's going to win it. That it was going to be The Rock. And because I thought, Austin was going to have to carry forward, and I knew Austin would not get the belt back to WrestleMania. I just knew they were going to carry it that long. And I knew The Rock was going to get it, but I did not expect the heel turn.
I didn't think The Rock was going to get it, and I didn't expect the heel turn. I didn't expect any of it.
Yeah, so, it definitely left me in a spot where I was like, whoa. And so, the story goes a little different. After, Survivor Series, The Rock emerges as a corporate champion. Shawn Michaels returns. He had been out, back injury, going into WrestleMania 14 from Royal Rumble 98. After losing to Austin, kind of disappearing, he tried to do the announcer thing for a little bit. He, as we covered in the Survivor Series 98 episode and Rock Bottom through this time, Shawn Michaels emerges as the new commissioner, becomes the corporate commissioner, turning on DX, starts the DX Corporation rivalry, as we've covered through this, helping The Rock. And, so The Rock continues to go on. He's having his battles with Mankind. They have the I Quit match, they have the Last Man Standing match, they have the Halftime Heat match, another ladder match that we had talked about a little bit earlier. And so Austin, after Survivor Series, is having to get through a Buried Alive match with The Undertaker to get into the Royal Rumble. He gets into the Royal Rumble. Shawn Michaels, who the corporation had turned on him because he let Mankind beat up Shane, makes Vince McMahon and Austin the number 1 and number 2 men into the Rumble. Corporation sets up Stone Cold. They attack him in the bathroom, they beat him down, but Austin's able to persevere, get back into the Rumble. Austin and McMahon are the last 2 in the Rumble. The Rock comes out, distracts Austin, McMahon gets the win. And so now we're looking like we're going to, McMahon is going to WrestleMania, but he pulls himself out and says, because they're part of the corporation, he knows The Rock woke up in the middle of the night in fear because he realized he was going to have to face Vince McMahon at WrestleMania. So he pulls himself out of the match. And that's when Shawn Michaels appears on the Tron with Stone Cold, drunk, both of them drunk at Shawn Michaels' house. Shawn Michaels announcing that according to the rule book, if the winner of the Royal Rumble is unable...
The actual rule book, not the Jack Daniels rule book.
If the winner of the Rumble is unable or unwilling to go on to WrestleMania, the runner-up is in, and so that means Stone Cold. Stone Cold offers to Vince McMahon that he's willing to put up his spot at WrestleMania if Vince McMahon can beat him in a cage match. So that leads to St. Valentine's Day Massacre that we covered previously. Austin wins the cage match over McMahon because Big Show emerges from through the ring, throws Austin through the cage, causing Austin to hit the floor and accidentally win the match. And so now we are heading into WrestleMania, The Rock versus Austin. And one of the things that I loved, probably my favorite moments, one of my favorite moments in the history of Raw is leading up to this match. Stone Cold, we talked about at this point, he's drove a hearse, he's drove a Zamboni, he's drove a cement truck, but here he is driving a beer truck to the ring, getting out with The Rock, Vince, and Shane McMahon in the ring, and just hosing them down with beer.
Yeah, and it's only appropriate for Stone Cold to be driving a beer truck because we know how much he loves beer. And I'll never forget Vince McMahon swimming on a wrestling mat during a beer bath. And I also just remember the promos going back and forth between Austin and The Rock. Amazing stuff. The crowd is just hot. And during this time is the first time you start to really see the crowd is The Rock's a heel, but they're loving him. And they just, they can't get enough of the dude.
Sorry about that, I had to jump away real quick. But yeah, so the crowd is loving both of these two. Are these two the best ever on the mic?
Well, two of the best. You cannot leave out Ric Flair.
Yeah, Flair is definitely good in terms of cutting a promo. But man, I don't know if I've ever seen two guys be able to have a crowd in complete control, like completely control a crowd, have them in the palm of their hands, and do it in such a mainstream manner that as these two did. I mean, yeah, Ric Flair, has some of the best promos, but maybe it was just the way the Attitude Era was at the time, but I've never seen people walking around with, as many shirts of Ric Flair as I have of Austin 316 or The Rock, or as many people quoting along with Ric Flair promos as there were of these. I mean, at this time, people could recite Rock promos. People could recite Austin stuff. Like, I can still talk about, him on top of the beer truck with, he's going to go down Know Your Role Boulevard. He's going to check himself into the SmackDown hotel, walk up to 316 and burn that sumbitch to the ground.
Yep.
It's like I can still rattle that off. I mean, just, it was about a couple months ago, as we were or a few months ago now, as we were wrapping up season 1, before we went on the air, as we were sitting around talking and, talking about the promos of The Rock talking about Billy Gunn, and Billy Gunn, where The Rock pretending to be Billy and was like,
"Oh dear God, hi, my name's Billy, and I just won King of the Ring. There's just one problem. Everybody thinks that I absolutely suck."
With the whole, it doesn't matter what your name is. I mean,
Bob?
So it's like, we can still cite those.
Yeah.
And so, that's where it's like, that's why I always put these two as probably my two best promo guys.
And I, unfortunately, in the 80s, I didn't appreciate Ric Flair promos because the promos that he cut in the 80s were phenomenal. And in the 80s, you didn't have the interplay with the crowd like you had in the 90s. So I get what you're saying. Get what you're saying. But it's like,
and it could depend on the style of wrestling you like, also.
Yeah, but when you add that, you combine that level of passion, the crowd interaction, the interplay that they had with each other. Those probably are the top two.
Yeah, and maybe would Flair have been, maybe some of his promos been even better had he had someone like this to play off of.
Right.
If he had someone that was as good as him.
Because the only guy that could really go toe to toe with Flair on the mic
was Dusty.
Yeah, Dusty.
Yeah, and so, and also, at that time, I appreciate more of Flair from the 80s now, which I didn't then. At that time, as a kid, Hogan, Warrior, those were the type of guys that, I was into, like Demolition and stuff like that. And I knew the Road Warriors.
Right.
And I knew who Flair was, I knew who Luger was, I knew who Sting was. I just wasn't a fan of it. But, as I get older and I kind of look back on NWA stuff, it's easy to see that, wow, this was more for an older crowd than what WWE was.
Yeah.
So that was probably why at the time I didn't appreciate it.
Yeah, because he was talking, he wasn't talking about training your players and eating your vitamins. He was talking about riding limousines, flying jets, getting with women and stealing kisses and spilling liquor and stuff like that. And he's talking about that in the 80s. WWF didn't get there till the 90s.
Right. And so, so kind of back in here, what's funny is you have so many things, layered into going into this match. So we talked about earlier, initially, the night after St. Valentine's Day Massacre, they come out to the ring, they're pushing to get The Rock his match with Mankind to get his belt back. The Rock drops the Shawn Michaels Know Your Role, or Commissioner Michaels Know Your Role, and make this match. And, McMahon telling Michaels, make it your kind of match, make it a ladder match. And, Shawn Michaels, which was really interesting to me, is you have this initial promo right then between the two of which just makes me think of, man, how good could a rivalry have been between them?
God.
When, Shawn Michaels looks at The Rock and was like, about knowing my role, I've had roles that you'll never hold or will never have, little boy.
God.
And at that time, was pretty true because no one knew how big The Rock would become. But, that's also where McMahon names that the Big Show is going to be the referee for the main event at WrestleMania. And so, Big Show ends up interfering in the ladder match. The Rock's got the title back. Now Mankind, it's building up Mankind and the Big Show to see who's going to referee this match. So, Big Show, who we saw tied in at St. Valentine's Day Massacre, Mankind, who got tied in back around Survivor Series 98 and had been in that main event picture for the title in that picture this whole time, are all now still put into the storyline. Mm-hmm. It's just another weave into the storyline.
Right. And I still think back to, even in 2008 when Rock was at the Hall of Fame, he talked about Shawn Michaels being one of the people he regrets not having a chance to work with. And I think there's a YouTube video that somebody mashed up somewhere that we might have to kind of link here, that it kind of talks about what a promo, like setting up that match between those two would look like. And I'm just like, gosh, this needs to happen. We got cheated.
Yeah, and you can look back at, the summer of 2005 when Michaels was in his rivalry with Hogan. And he was, I believe it was on the Man Cow show, I could be wrong, being interviewed by Man Cow. And Man Cow asked him, hey, is Michaels Hogan, because it was getting so much attention, Michaels Hogan. And, and I still love the Michaels Hogan build-up. I'm disappointed the match that went the way it did. But I love the build up to it. I love that version.
Watching that match the other night.
I love that version of Shawn when he was kind of playing the heel at that time, because he really didn't do it on his comeback. And he's always been such a good heel. And but on that Man Cow show, they were asking him like, Hogan Michaels is like, is this the biggest match for Shawn? And Shawn was like, well, until The Rock comes back and faces me. And so, even then in 2005, he was trying to get that match to happen. So, yeah, definitely, I would have loved to have seen that match.
Could still happen. Just saying.
It could. Probably highly, highly, highly unlikely. But so, so now we're coming into the main event. And before the main event, Michael Cole announced that Jim Ross, who had been out, with Bell's palsy, was coming back to help call this match. Then Mr. McMahon starts coming out to the ring. So, McMahon, who's been tied into the storyline all along as well, is now his part to weave into this match. He's coming out to the ring.
To referee.
Yes, to be the special guest referee himself. And all of a sudden, so Shawn Michaels' music hits. Shawn's on his way, and now, his role as the commissioner through this time, which has played a big role into this, is now being also another weave into this match, another layer. He comes out and, ties everything together, telling Mr. McMahon that if I told you once, I've told you 1,000 times, you've got to read that WWF rulebook. And lets him know, like, there's only one man that can appoint a referee at WrestleMania, and it's not you. It's the Heartbreak Kid. And so, lets Mr. McMahon know the corporation is banned from ringside, but he's going to let McMahon come down. And so he sends McMahon out of there and brings out Mike Chioda to be the referee. And so far, every person that's been involved in this great, huge storyline has been really weaved into this match. And so the match itself, takes off. They fight in the ring, out of the ring. Austin, had a fight with his then wife on the way to the event, so he forgot to pack his vest. So we got to see a different look of Austin. He came out in a t-shirt.
Which he was ticked about.
Yeah, so he comes out, you can see in the picture down here, he comes out in a t-shirt. But, man, this match just right off the bat, Austin, where he normally hits the turnbuckles, and then The Rock cutting him off and just staring him down. So right off the bat, this match is hot and it's going strong.
Yeah, and this was not the tip. And it added to, like, I just remember basically almost everyone, maybe not the third one, but it seems like every one of their main events, it just got straight to it.
Yeah, I mean, it just immediately started with them like trash talking, which makes sense for both of their characters, and then all of a sudden punches are flying. Austin and The Rock, Austin and The Rock, and then they're outside of the ring, and they're fighting all over the outside of the ring, and then working their way back in, and eventually we end up seeing Mankind making his way down to the ring, back. They thought he went to the hospital, but here he is back with his handmade referee shirt. They come down and help get in there. Austin hits multiple stunners, and The Rock with his great selling of the stunners, his flipping around the ring.
And I remember reading Rock's book where they each agreed that the other should kick out of, The Rock. Austin agreed that The Rock should kick out of the stunner. I mean, Austin actually suggested it, and vice versa. I mean, Rock suggested that Austin kick out of the Rock bottom just to kind of add to the drama in the match. And I just feel like this was the beginning of a lot more respect between these two, because Austin was kind of wary of the Rock at first. As Rock had said, they didn't know each other, but as they started to work together, I mean, built that trust to be, they wanted to put on the best show possible.
Well, if you think of also what that did, think of all the previous main events before that. Nobody kicked out of Hogan's leg drop.
Right.
Nobody kicked out of, the super kick. Nobody
kicked out of the
pushed out of the sharpshooter.
Right.
And so, but now, people kicking out of finishers at WrestleMania, like we saw, like you mentioned, Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker WrestleMania 25, like how many times they kicked out of stuff on each other. And so, it's pretty commonplace now, but at this time, that was unheard of. And so those false finishes, just had you on the edge of your seat.
It did, and it just made you think, how is this thing going to end?
Yeah, and and like you talk about, that respect for each other. Both of them have said multiple times that they brought out the best in each other. Mm-hmm. They both wanted to be that best, so it lit that competitive fire between the two of them. They both pushed each other to be the best, and in this match, it shows how much they both wanted to be the best and how hard they pushed each other, leading up to Austin getting the victory, and then dropping McMahon at the end as well.
Yep, and I believe this may still be the biggest pay-per-view they've done.
And so this, makes Austin a 3-time WWE champion. And yeah, so top, in my opinion, top to bottom, this entire pay-per-view, for that time, if you were a fan at that time, this pay-per-view hit on everything that you loved about Raw, everything, because SmackDown didn't exist yet. So everything you loved about Raw, it hit on it. Everything that, made WWE what it was, WrestleMania covered it. It brought everything together, and really, culminating in this huge main event that we just talked about that had been building. The storyline, goes all the way back to the fall of '97 in terms of Austin and McMahon and how they were trying to keep the belt away from him. It starts all the way back then, and then just builds rapidly. And by the time we're getting to Survivor Series '98, you're just full steam ahead going towards this main event. So, the title of this, the Raging Climax, fits in terms of the main event.
And then you're set for basically the next couple years, because you leave this pay-per-view with Triple H turning heel. So you've got the next guy that's going to be kind of coming up. You've got The Undertaker evolving. You've got Mankind, as a main event player. So
the big shows emerging onto the scene.
So you've got what's DX going to do next? You've got all these storylines, and then you've got the continuing story of Pete Rose versus Kane. Can't forget that. And
you still got, The Rock and Austin can keep going.
Right. So you're basically set, and this was, in my opinion, this WrestleMania probably started The Rock down that path of becoming what he is today.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's why I said at the start, this is my favorite WrestleMania, only because I remember how excited I was for it at the time. just being excited throughout the entire show. So many things going on, and you and I have talked, separately before that 98 was a good year.
Right.
In terms of stuff they did, but in 99, I mean, they were hitting on all cylinders, especially at this point.
Yeah. I mean, in 99, they were hitting so well that when Austin ended up going out with the neck injury, they were still able to keep going. And in 99 also, you get this guy named Kurt Angle that comes in later that year, so they're rolling.
And so I'm really hoping, if you haven't seen this, go back and watch, especially all the build up towards it. I mean, this was built so well, and by the time this Mania hit, it was definitely the icing on the cake.
No question, it was. And I mean, we wouldn't get another WrestleMania this good. I mean, WrestleMania 2016, whatever you want to call it, was a bit of a letdown, but the next time Austin and Rock got together at WrestleMania 17, that's my favorite match of the three that they had. That's my favorite match that they had.
Yeah, and in terms of, WrestleMania 17, in terms of a show, yeah, Austin and Rock had a good match. Triple H and Undertaker had a good match, but I mean, there's really not much else I can really throw out about 17. 18, you had the NWO, you had Triple H, Jericho. But yeah, I mean, this was the last Mania that I just remember being this excited for. I haven't had one since then that I've been that excited for. I mean, I remember being highly interested in 19 because of the return of Shawn Michaels. He's always been my favorite. Yeah. 21 because of him going against Kurt Angle. 25, I remember being excited for 25, but really being excited for that one match.
Yeah. I remember being excited for 25. I mean, not only because I was there, but just because there had been a Monday Night Raw here in Kansas City. I think this one would have been at Sprint Center that we were at, where Randy Orton DDT'd Stephanie. That kind of helped build that storyline. And so I remember being excited for that one. I remember 26 being excited because we were in the house for Shawn. Well, that was Shawn Michaels' last match. He does a one-off. It don't matter. I mean, I remember being excited for that one. Also, I mean, Rock Cena. Need I say more? That first Rock Cena match was probably the last time I really got super stoked for Mania.
Yeah, but again, that was really about one match, being pumped up for one match. Where this, it was I remember I was pumped up for the entire show.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's why it's my favorite. Glad we were able to bring this to you, covering that section of the Attitude Era. We covered from Survivor Series 98 all the way up through WrestleMania 15. So, I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't seen the other ones, definitely, go back, start with that episode, and kind of watch it through.
All right, and let us know what you think. What's your favorite Mania moments? And I mean, talk to us. We can compare moments, compare notes. Hell, we might have both been at the same Mania and not even know it.
All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in.
Good night.